Questions from you all? I don't know what our time frame is. Yes.
How did it come to work with Robert Plant?
He had a solo record called Dreamland, and I was assigned that as a project. And surprisingly, he's a very nice guy. He's a wonderful guy. And too hands-on to a certain point. He would call me at home. He would call me on the train when I'm commuting in. He would call me when I was at my son's game, or he would just call me all the time to want to know what's going on. It was great because Robert Plant's calling you, and it was pretty fucking cool. Coolest thing with Plant, we were at the Plaza one day, and we were in his suite, and I had to ask him to give me some quotes for another project that was going on. And he goes, that's really not what I'm about. The quotes wouldn't mean a thing. But let me make a call. And he calls Jimmy Page on the phone. I said, can I get that number? But it was pretty cool. There I'm sitting with Plant, and he's calling Jimmy Page. So that's pretty cool. I didn't get the number.
Other question? Sean?
That's the way it is right now, but we're going to expand. Yeah, I mean, if there's a band that fits, like right now we're talking to a country band out of Texas. He's a 21-year-old kid from the University of Texas. And he writes great songs. And he's got a great following, and it's something we're going to pursue. It's not that I know that market well, but I know enough people that I can learn that marketplace, and it makes sense for us. And if he can sell stuff, then I'm thrilled about that as well. So.
How would you find a 21-year-old kid at the University of Texas? I mean, how did he come on your radar?
My son found it. Yeah, MySpace.
On MySpace?
Yeah.
Now,
he said, this is cool.
You sure they hadn't hired you to...
Well, first thing that I did was when my son brought it to me was
Are we working this?
is that we went out and checked it out. We found out what was real.
Okay.
Not just speaking to the band, but speaking to the fans and finding out if these people really knew the band. Wow. And it turns out that most of their friends have seen them 7 times, have bought the record. We investigated. Because many times we go to investigate a band on MySpace or just the net in general. And a lot of it's made up. A lot of it's smoke and mirrors. And you find out that these guys are pretty good liars.
You going to give your son points on the record?
He's already signed 2 bands, and yes, he does have
got points on
yes.
Good, okay. Other questions? Sean has a follow-up. Yeah.
I just wondered what that was.
I'm not going to tell you because you're going to sign him. I haven't signed him yet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's your first real lesson. Yeah.
Masters are owned by them. You will find out that is huge. And more beyond that you can imagine right now is to own your art. Because if you don't, when you leave that company in 3 years, you can say, man, I'd really like to redo that song. And you can't.
So you don't have re-record restrictions either?
No, I'm saying we do. During the license, I'm saying if you're with another company.
No, I know that, but a band on your label could re-record after they leave with you immediatally?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
But
it can be real.
You can't get people out to the shows. I mean, is that part of your thing? You can't, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I did A&R for a long time, and it was
That's up to the manager. If they hire us, we're there to create the visibility, to create the want to go to a show. We can also release digital stuff as well in conjunction with the visibility, so that you can start to show sales through Napster and Reel and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, but not SoundScan, and you can't get people out to the show. I mean,
we can SoundScan product at shows.
Through show, okay.
Yeah, we can do that too for bands.
Gotcha.
And we do that.
So, other than obviously saving on some serious legal fees and having a pretty intense work ethic, how do you go about staying on top with your marketing a band for 14 months? You said you're selling to niche markets, you're releasing exclusive kind of extra content, B-sides, stuff like that. What else do you do to stay financially alive during that time?
What do you mean with that? With one particular act, or?
One particular act. How is that act going to start recouping, start making money? I mean, this sounds kind of like a dream label. Most labels have that 6 weeks after the release because they got to be making money.
Well, we're in a position where we don't need to make $48 million in week one. If I made $48 in week one, you wouldn't see me. I'd be gone. But we have time and we have the ability to work with bands and to develop them, to go from, okay, right now it's just about touring. Next step is about, okay, let's develop a press profile. Then let's develop touring outside of that world. Then let's maybe take it to satellite radio and develop it there. Let's take it to internet radio. It's constantly growing it. It's not just doing the same thing for 14 months. If you're doing the same thing for 14 months, you're right, you're not going to make any money, and you're not going to sell any discs. Because the bottom line is to sell the art, and the only way to do it is to sell the art, spread the word. So you have to continue to grow the fan base. And it's just different things that get done. You may start with the internet stuff, with all the lower level stuff, visibility, gain some cred, and then take it to the next level of sites, or take it to the next level of what's going to get done. And then what you're doing by releasing B-sides and stuff like that is continuing to build the base. You're continuing to feed your base of fans while you continue to grow beyond that. Bands sometimes forget about their base, and they let the base go, and what happens when your base leaves? You fall apart, and then there's no one to go to, so that when you release the next record, you have some place to start. You have your base to start with. So you can't let that base deteriorate, or you'll fall apart. There's too many bands that forget about that. They go on, and then they don't know why they can't sell their next record because they forgot about their fans. You know, they went on to sell 14 million records, and the next record sells 14 because their fans went away. Their fans found something else to do. You didn't serve them. You didn't create for them. And if it takes you 3 years to put another record out, they're gone. They're gone on to something else. So it's not just doing one thing. It's the growth of the project and the growth of the band. Can the band pull it off?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what you're doing is in some ways kind of what labels used to do.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely.
I mean, it's like it's just amazing that we look at this as like, wow, what a novel idea.
It's
you
not.
know, it's really part and parcel to why I think the industry's in such a sad state of affairs.
Well, look at stuff. Springsteen wouldn't exist.
Of
Dylan
course.
wouldn't exist.
U2 wouldn't exist. I mean,
Nope.
none of these bands
None of
were
those bands would
overnight
exist.
kind of
Nope.
6-week type.
You think
success.
Springsteen's first record would have been a hit?
No.
He would have been pumping gas in Red Bank.
Other questions? Yeah. Good question.
One thing that I did learn is start with more cash than you think you need, for one. Although we did not, and we have benefited from that, the fact that we don't have shareholders breathing down our throat. It gives us the freedom. And get involved with the right people. Get involved with the minimum amount of people who can do the most work. Because when I see people starting up labels who have a staff of 12 and they haven't put a record out yet, that's a problem. Because your monthly nut will kill you. You don't need the all office space on Park Avenue in New York. You don't need the limos to the plane. You don't need first class. You have to really put it together, knowing that every dime that comes in, 8 cents is going to go right back out. So you have to really watch what you're doing. So, I mean, I don't know if that responds to what you're saying, but I think it's the people, and my gut would say you find more cash than you think you're going to need, because you'll end up needing it somewhere. It's a struggle, but again, it's freedom and control.
Absolutely right.
What was the name of your company again?
rockridgemusic.com.
He's Googling it right now. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm sorry, Lucy.
What is the size and spaces of different artists? Does it vary, or do you have an ideal size
For the bass?
band group?
For the bass for the band?
Yeah.
Some of the bands have zero bass when we start with them, but it depends. I mean, it depends on why we sign the band. Some bands, there's a band that we just signed that I hope their record sucks. I mean, it just sucks. But people go to see them live. I mean, they draw 400, 500 people a night. I have no idea why, but they tour, and they tour strong. I couldn't even get through the first part of the record.
You've signed Fish.
No. I would take Fish, but I mean, the record sucks, but they have a nice touring base. Good guys, smart guys, they know what they're doing.
So your hope there is that they have a fan base, they'll
Yes.
build it, and then they'll eventually make a great record.
Or we'll help them make a great record
You're
too,
helping
so that's a
Sure.
different thing too. I mean, the base can be 0, the base can be 50,000. That's just part of what we deal with to make a decision to deal with a band or not. Once we have a plan, we'll have a goal. Because one of the worst things that is done is labels will pick a date. We're going to put the record out on this date, and then they let the date dictate the planning. The planning should dictate the date. As soon as you let the date dictate the plan, you're dead. Then you start doing things you wouldn't do. You start spending cash you wouldn't spend. You start doing things in a shorter period of time. You don't allow things to grow correctly. You have to let the planning dictate the date or the goal. Because if you just say, okay, I want to sell 10,000 records, well, I could say that every day of the week, and it sounds really good, and sometimes I do say it depending on who I'm speaking to. But for the most part, I can't think that way. I have to think about what am I going to do to get to this step, and then this step, and this date and that date. Because bands always say, oh, we have to have the record out by this date. Our fans can't wait. I'm sorry to say the only one waiting for that record is you. Nobody else is waiting for it. Everyone else is going to school or going out to eat or playing video games. Well, you have to make them want that record. And if the fans want it now, you've got to make them want it more, so that they're telling their friends about it, so that their 4 friends then want that record. So you have to be able to plan correctly and not pick a date and say, oh, we have to have it out then, which I've done when I work for the big guys. Sure. It's like this record's got to come out on this day because we need the billing for that month. Sure. And that record would come out, and that record could be dead before it comes out. The band could be dropped before the record comes out.
I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.